Let's get started. Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to the Small Cap Discoveries conference call. Today on our call, we've got Neil Seeman, the CEO, and Daniel Im, the CFO of RIWI Corp. For disclosure purposes, both Paul Andriola and myself are shareholders of the company. And again, before we get started, I want to remind all participants that your microphones have been muted. And at the bottom of your screen, there's a chat function, and we encourage the audience to ask questions and use the chat feature to do so. I'd like to highlight that RIWI is a Canadian company which trades on the Canadian Securities Exchange under the symbol RIW. The company has roughly 18 million shares outstanding and an $80 million market cap. I'd now like to introduce Neil Seeman and hand it over to Paul Andriola.
Thanks, Trevor. You mistakenly said we're both shareholders. We are both very happy shareholders. So I want to add that in. Stock hit an all-time high today, so congratulations, guys. Why don't we just jump into it? I know most of the listeners here have a good idea of what you guys do, but why don't we do another sort of short intro in terms of exactly what RIWI does?
Thanks, Paul. Thank you, Trevor. And thanks to all the folks on this call. It's Neil here. I'm the founder, CEO. Yeah, so as all of you, I think, know, we're a global trend tracking and predictive analytics firm collecting a unique stream of opinion data and message testing data from all parts of the world, all countries in the world. And we sell our continuous services, continuous data feeds to large footprint global private sector companies in the healthcare sector, for example. And then we have a humanitarian aid business line, which is large organizations like the Gates Foundation or the World Bank. For example, increasingly they want to understand migrant populations and how they move in the context of COVID-19. And then thirdly, we have a growing security business where we're working around the world to collect, again, unique streams of sentiment data that matter, for example, to predominantly countering violent extremism.
Cool. Yeah, maybe explain the genesis of the business. You guys, what's going on right now with the coronavirus pandemic. You guys actually came from that world. Maybe give a little description of where you came from and how it sort of fits into today's environment.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. So my background, for those of you who don't know, is in a rarefied area called infodemiology. So these days, a lot of people are talking about epidemiology, right, which is the transmission of disease across countries. Infodemiology is a term that was sort of invented in 2008, which is all about how people online around the world consume, produce, share, react to online information. So sort of a field that essentially invented the concept of misinformation. So we were born in my old research unit affiliated with the University of Toronto, looking at H1N1 and understanding misinformation in that context and understanding how people were reacting to government messages then. So that's how we were born. And then now, full cycle today to what we're facing today, it's an interesting, from a business perspective, I was reflecting on this with Daniel, that it's kind of not, our success from a growth perspective recently, although it's correlated with COVID-19, it's not caused by COVID-19 in the sense that it's kind of an interesting accident that these things happen together. So we were on a course path to growing our business, hiring sales professionals, all of that stuff. I think what's happened with COVID-19, we certainly had our existing client base and new clients care about that topic a lot, but the way it's sort of redounded to our benefit is predominantly around the marketing side. People essentially, hey, our story just became people became more aware of us. As many of the folks on here know, we've sort of been under the radar, and that's changed obviously a little bit.
So are you seeing any potential new business because of what's going on right now? I just imagine the issues around collecting data in so many different places it's got to be more an issue now than almost ever before.
Yeah, yes. The short answer is yes, and so that's from our existing clients and inbound clients as well. What's really interesting is that people, the buyer community, is much more aware now. The sophisticated buyer community of the challenges of the challenges and flaws of legacy data collection methods. And I'll just give you one example. So data anonymity. So we really pride ourselves. I've been sort of a privacy samurai for a long time, and it wasn't until Mr. Zuckerberg gave his congressional testimony on this matter that people actually started to say, hey, wow, Neil's got a point on that. And then things started to build. But putting aside any of our potential concerns around data privacy, the real issue here is data quality. So when you're collecting data, opinion data, accurate response data on whether or not you have symptomatology, whether you've been tested, and whether you're collecting that data in Iceland, Singapore, in migrant populations, that's just one element of data quality that is required. You need data anonymity in order for people to provide you the truth. We're starting to learn that all of these interesting app-based data collection tools, and that's just one, have its problems. So data quality, people are much more attuned to the old legacy methods of signing up for panels for cash or rewards. People are just recognizing, the buyers are just realizing that, hey, this is just not the way that it can work if we need to take actionable insights on stuff that really matters.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes sense. That's cool. Can you, I'm trying to dive into some of the sort of current issues and things, and just maybe it'll help explain how you guys do things. But we're seeing stuff happening in China, for example, that people question sort of the data that's coming out. How do you guys get behind that and collect data that is more valid or people can use better?
Oh, thank you, Paul. So that is a big benefit for us having been born in the pandemic context. So really, many pandemics have started in China. So our original work out was really based on my passion for understanding the truth about what's really going on in China, and not just in the urban communities in China, where you can get opinion data if it's approved by the government, maybe a year or two later, maybe from 10 or 12 cities. But in the context of RIWI, where the RIWI platform is sort of let's just say it's very solid in China, and sure, they can shut, there's certain entities that can censor or watch certain websites. It's not really feasible to cut off the RIWI platform, which is operating outside of the PRC, unless you're going to snip off the internet to that country. So that's very important just from a technological perspective. But really, and there's a great deal of work that goes into ensuring that the veracity of the data that's coming out of our China feed on a continual basis, whether that's about consumer confidence in China, where we're doing a ton of work, whether it's about investor confidence, whether it's about economic indicators coming out of China. It's all really born on our experience around how you evaluate the truth of that data coming out. You have to be very sensitive to things like question design, the falsification of your data. You have to ask dummy questions to ensure that the data are real and reliable. But right now, in terms of COVID-19, what our let's call it our customers care a lot about, and certainly what I care about as an infodemiologist, is what different countries can learn from China. And we can learn a lot. Whatever we may think of the Communist Party, we can learn a lot in terms of how different populations there reacted to the reopening of China. And I've got a paper forthcoming in a journal, and it's really interesting, looking at essentially the changing attitudes toward or concerns, anxieties, if you will, about the elderly population across China. And I compare that to 7 other countries. each at a different stage of the epidemic. So all of this is important because every country needs to learn from other countries. You know, that's the pandemic from the Greek pandemos, it's global, right? So that's sort of why this all matters.
Cool, very cool. You know, a lot of people still are challenged by how you guys collect the data or understanding how you do it. Can you dumb it down as much as you can and try to really have people understand exactly how you collect your data?
Yeah, sure. So every day, every second of the day, there are up to 10 million, tens of millions rather, let me get higher, of vacant or dormant, non-commercially active domains, so web domains that people visit on the web by typing into the web address bar on any type of browser, any type of device that may have been active once, but is no longer commercially active now. And at that moment in time, they're exposed to a real registered, non-trademarked RIWI invitation, not a pop-up, not a pop-under, a real domain that, unlike email access panels, doesn't flag as malware or anything like that. And they're invited to participate in a survey. And it's very quick, so we emphasize latency. If they want to get out, they get out. And then they answer, and they answer a whole bunch of questions. Globally, on average, we have about 10% of people flow through. It varies enormously depending on topic, depending on issue. And then we collect those data in real time, and those data are delivered raw and unweighted form. So we know, for example, the raw unweighted women versus men, and then we also deliver in real time the weighted data. So the clients through dashboards see, okay, you map it in real time to census. So what are you getting? And that's what you're getting. And there's many value propositions here: the continuity of the data, the privacy of the data, the global nature of the data. But the main value proposition is that you're hearing from voices, in some cases 50%, 60%, 70% of people who have never answered a survey of any other type, any other kind, or a message test of any other type, any of the other kind. So imagine if you're testing a message, a narrative about how America should position itself vis-a-vis this, trade war or other issues. You can measure that effectiveness in new and exciting ways. So it's not, the volume of data is quite considerable. We've had we stopped counting at 1.6 billion interviewees, and then the volume of data around that, but it's really the quality of that data stream once you get out the noise that can be very valuable and potentially predictive.
Mm-hmm. And I think we had a discussion once where you really explained it. It's there's all sorts of survey companies out there collecting data, but the challenge is really, and probably the most important data, or the hardest to get, is really what you guys deliver. You seem to be able to get into very hard to reach areas and very hard to reach people and be able to collect that data. Is that not correct?
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the sort of, the immediate value propositions for a consumer goods company, we have one G7 central bank as a customer right now, and we're happy that's a repeat business. So these are some of that's one dominant reason that some of our customers like what we provide. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, good. Let's, I guess, some quick questions around some of the stuff that's going on right now. Are you guys seeing any sort of operational impact from what's going on with the COVID virus stay-at-home orders?
For our business, yes, and it's an unusual one, and it's simply communication. So, look, and it's not an insignificant matter. So, you're in a situation where you're hiring, right? And in that context of hiring, people are new. They're new to the company, and they haven't met their colleagues, and they're working. And so, a little, you're using it's one thing to use a Slack channel for 8 people. It's another thing to use a Slack channel for 20 people, and so these kinds of things. So we're actually, we've got sort of, we're always working on improving our communication, making sure something doesn't miscommunicate. I know that sounds really soft, but actually it's really quite important. And then then the process of hiring is changed, and then the nature of meeting your clients where they are. So so we have our existing clients, but then of course when you're talking to new clients operationally, you're, oh, wait a second, you got to make sure that they're okay, and oftentimes you don't really know what's going on. So, but this is a business challenge that's affecting, you know, every business around the world, and at the same time we're just reinventing the concept of business networking, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I get the sense from what you're saying here that it almost feels like it's predominantly on the sales side that you guys are having issues, or
Yeah, so we're having a lot of really like things that I'm extremely happy about on the sales side happening, just in terms of extraordinary people. I mean, I can't describe to you. I mean, we have a position that we just hired for, and got a really exceptional candidate. And I can't describe to you the quality of the candidates that came in through, and it's and in a number of cases, the finalists were people whose you know, their employer just lost, abruptly had to fire 70% of their staff. So it's an interesting, there's a lot of great talent out there. We have to be very careful. Obviously, every new person is really important. But so I'd say operationally, it's about sales communication. We like to lead with authenticity. That's a core value of ours. So we don't like to be in the business of kind of I don't know, whatever you call it, right? Like just mass generated email campaigns and stuff like that. Not to suggest that doesn't have a role in some situations, but it does affect how you meet your customers and speak with them authentically.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. Are you seeing what kind of new revenue opportunities are you seeing, either because of COVID or just in general, that different than your core opportunities that you've always had?
Yeah, so I mean, a big agenda for us, long before COVID became sort of on the map globally here, was for us to, you know, hire a chief revenue officer and really drive out our sales agenda, led by Neil Weitzman. What a lot of shareholders may not know is that, I mean, it's in our disclosures, but really from a business operations perspective, Daniel's here, he's full-time CFO, hasn't, you know, he started August 2017. My CTO was, you know, he was actually still a consultant until 2017. I was actually still teaching part-time till 2016. So we've been on this path to grow out our sales, and the main issue with respect to sales and sales growth, we have a lot of, you know, agendas with respect to recurring revenue, which have been very sort of you know, transparent about. But the other one is data partnerships. And if anything, I think COVID has brought home that reality that you need to, and this, it's just so many amazing data companies out there that have done really, really well by essentially being very disciplined about working with the right partners, because they can resell your data in a classic reseller model. So that's a huge opportunity for us, Paul. They can also curate your data. So they take your data, curate it, and they've got the customers, and the customers want the data. So this is a business model that the market has proven actually works for us. And the other opportunity for us, so we see a lot of opportunity there. The other opportunity for us that's proven true is that our historic data sets. So because we've been at this for a long time now, sort of mining a bunch of sort of historic, so monetizing those, selling those through ourselves, but also through our data partnerships. So those are two big areas of growth that really preceded our strategy there, preceded COVID.
Now, I remember reading a press release announcing a deal with Think Data. Is
Yes.
that an example of that?
It is. It is. So yes. So Brian's the CEO of Think Data, and yeah, and we originally started talking about China. He comes from the world of open data sets, as do I. Open data sets are, you know, you take open data sets that's out there, and then you aggregate them and bring together beautiful things. And so, and then really at the end of the day, we just sort of hatched out this thing, which is blossomed into something really excellent. So that's an example, and it's a great example. And I think that there are I know, actually, that there are many, many, many other entities like that that are in various stages of maturity. We have to do a better job, and I think I'm responsible for this, making this error in the past in terms of, putting more rigor and science around choosing which partners to sort of work with, right? And making quicker decisions on saying, okay, well, yeah, you guys do your stuff, it's cool, but it's not right a quick match here. So this is a flurry of activity, and the benefit of having really experienced people like Neil Weitzman and the folks he's brought on and bringing on and with us is that they have just a rigor and discipline in sort of, just this kind of effecting this kind of partnership. Daniel, on that point, do you want to, I'm sensitive to talking all the time. Did you want to supplement that?
Yeah, I think this is a really big opportunity for us because we haven't really tapped into the partner channel in the past. I think, our first foray into Think Data has really been a really great opportunity for us. And, since our partners can bring on their own, internal sales staff, can be 10, 20, 40, 100 people that can resell our data straight up or with value added with some of their own integration with some other things that they do to provide the end client with additional insights and things. So this is something we've just scratched the surface on, and I think that is a real opportunity for us. And one of the new hires is someone dedicated to channel sales partnerships. So if someone's waking up every morning and that's the only thing on their plate every day, we think that could be a really good way for us to grow that particular part of our business.
Sure, no, that makes sense. Talking a little bit more about sales, do you guys track, or are you able to track, or even give a suggestion as to, for every dollar that you guys put into sales and marketing, what do you get in return? Do you follow any of that?
Oh, we're obsessed with it, and there's always challenge with sort of assessing ROI, and Daniel is here, and we're always assessing sort of the ROI of every salesperson. I've always appreciated the deep science of sales. It was opaque to me for a long time, and now I really appreciate it and love it. And so we look not only at every unit as a salesperson, but at each piece of it, right? So your lead generation person, your channel partner sales director, your chief revenue officer, your business development person who hands it off to the other person, who's your so-called hunter, closer type. So all of these people play a role. We really do feel, and I, we use all these basketball analogies, or for baseball, we're all playing a role in this equation. Danielle's our head of research. She was a university college basketball player, and actually Daniel, I forget, actually you played, I think you played college football, right? It's weird. We have all these athletes at our company. Like I said, I'm talking serious athletes. So my point being is, Paul, we do. There's not a magic number, but we do expect, let's just say for example, we have a number, an expectation, a quota-based sales expectation of every senior salesperson that we bring on. So we're quite rigorous about that.
But are you able to give us a ballpark? Like if all of a sudden you were to say that we're gonna put another $500,000 towards sales, do you have a sort of expectation what your result is by spending that kind of money?
Daniel, you know what the right answer to give is in this situation. You know the numbers better than I do. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not able to publicly say, but I would say that as we grow, from the beginning of the year till now, there's 5 people in sort of sales and marketing, and there's going to be a lag between our payroll costs and then the return on new revenue coming in, and we hope that'll be sooner rather than later. But once those folks get up to speed, we want to hire more people and sort of keep the ball rolling on that. I'm not able to publicly disclose what we have on our internal metrics on people's quota base, but let's just say it's aggressive but achievable targets, especially in the senior ranks. If you're coming in with a lot of background experience plus a larger comp package, then you should be bringing a lot more to the company and showing your value. So we think that's really a good way to grow and really evaluate people's effectiveness in sales. There's no point in you coming on as a salesperson and then not bringing any sales. It's not really going to work out long term. So we definitely have these targets that we're going to evaluate very rigorously, sort of daily, weekly, to make sure people are doing what they're brought on to do.
Okay, so obviously you're increasing your spend on sales and marketing and bringing in more staffing, but your cash position now is starting to build. What can an investor expect to see you guys use your cash for? What do you do with any excess cash?
Yeah, I mean, we're the short answer is we're always investing in the business. So that obviously means salespeople, as Daniel mentioned, across a wide range of things. But it also means investing in innovation, additive elements to our existing R&D, always customer responsive. Does that mean new programmers? Maybe. We have to always evaluate that going forward. We have the fortune now of having a lot of interest inbounds from some really talented people. In terms of that cash, but yeah, we are sensitive to the importance of using that cash wisely. As everyone I think knows, we really try to pride ourselves on being tight on G&A. We certainly did not predict COVID-19, but we've this is not our first roadshow, and we know that stuff happens, right? So you got to have that that cash in the bank in case some weird headwind happens that you cannot predict. I mean, Daniel, did you have anything to add on that side?
Yeah, I want to echo that point as well. I love cash. Cash is king, and I want to make sure that we have enough for a rainy day. So we want to spend wisely. But also another thing that we're always looking at, and there's nothing imminent on the horizon, but for strategic sort of M&A possibilities, not to look at smaller companies that sort of do what we do, because I don't think we want to dilute our products, and I think we're second to none in what we do in our services, but perhaps someone that can provide complementary services to our end clients to make it sort of a one-stop shopping or white glove service where it's not our forte, but sort of tangentially that is also important to our end clients that we may consider doing that as a complementary service. So those are always on our mind as well. And we, if we have cash in the bank, you can be able to transact in that way with many different flexible options. So that's another, in addition to what Neil mentioned, other reasons why we like to have some cash in the bank to see what we want to do going forward that could help boost our growth even more.
So Daniel, you sort of mentioned something. I should have asked this question earlier, but the idea of a white glove service, you guys are quite customized in terms of what you do for your client. There's probably some education of the client that to really understand how, what you guys can bring to the table here. But can one of you guys walk me through everything from how you get a customer to how you actually deliver the product and sort of the steps in between?
Yeah, sure. So, Paul, in terms of a net new client, it's outside of the private enterprise area, which is where we're aggressively putting our salespeople, right? So that's where we're really, and that's where we see that massive ROI. So in our other business that's sort of growing naturally, that comes generally through ecosystem. People tell others about us, and it's a relatively small ecosystem of buyers. So in that situation, of course, we're always hunting for new business, but in that situation, they learn about us. We give them a capabilities presentation. We explain how we differentiate from other services, whether it's social media sentiment analysis in China, or what we offer, or any number of other services, and that then then we have metrics around leads, and this is traditional kind of customer relation management stuff that Neil Weitzman leads. Then we look at translating those into active quotes out, right? We want to quote that. We want to get our average deal size higher. Of course, I think at one point we had an average deal size of $60,000. I think that's growing. I don't know what the dollar figure is right now, but we want to grow that quantum. And of course, we want to increase the percentage of business through which we see a lifespan of at least $250,000 off each contract. So we're always asking ourselves, is this a piece of work that if we succeed, right, there's going to be more and more business, right? And so we're actually finding ourselves turning down work. And that's very heartening to me. I mean, really, RIWI is a very powerful platform. And the challenge, the business challenge for quite some time, actually, like sort of before I got all these more, let's just say, business experience people around me, was, okay, it could be really applied to so many different things. And so it was sort of pulled off in too many directions. But now it's like when you have this sort of really hunter-focused sales orientation, it's actually really easy to turn away business. That's actually been our one of our biggest challenges historically. Oh, hey, that's really interesting. Yeah, we could do a new type of ad campaign in Ethiopia. No, okay, that's not what we're doing. I've never thought of that, by the way. That's just really weird. But I don't know, Daniel, did you want to supplement that? Taking him through, maybe I didn't complete the cycle, but we're always selling, right? So we're always talking, we're always selling. How does this solution lead to the next solution, right? And that with a B of A Securities, like these are amazing clients. They want to be with us. They want to work with us. To when COVID hits, my goodness, well, they can't. They want to tweak their questions that are running in China or elsewhere in the world, and so it's a really beautiful, elegant solution for us. For them rather, and it's very sort of valuable. So it's an always selling proposition.
Sort of leads me another question I just thought of. How often do you guys go to them with sort of questions that they should be asking rather than coming to you?
Yeah, that's a good question, So funnily enough, so we do, so now we have the luxury of having a really acclaimed economist as our head of research, Danielle. But I must say I've been stunned at the client's receptivity to our rather naive suggestions. So for example, look, I'm just going to say this straight out. We were very surprised. We were very surprised that Luckin Coffee seemed to have this traction, around the world. We were saying for a long time that Luckin Coffee didn't have the market share, didn't have the uptake. No, internally we were kind of laughing at the equation, and then so things like this, let's just say, gave us a lot more confidence. Yeah. And so whether it's and so they really it becomes quite an intimate environment where they do. Yeah, we at the beginning we pretended, we said, oh no, we're not experts in any subject domain, right? We are experts at this rarefied way of collecting data globally. But now we say, no, we actually are. We built. Look, we are very proud of the fact that we built the U.S. State Department's message testing capacity. We did that. It's extraordinary. We've done it, and so that then gives us a kind of layer of expertise on message testing that we can replicate for businesses, for political candidates anywhere around the world. So we do have expertise. We do have expertise as Maclean's and other media enterprises are now sort of recognizing around real-time data collection. Just a week or two ago, this vaunted UK economist came out talking about the true state of job losses in the US and the UK. And so we know this stuff. We are experts at high frequency, real-time economic indicator collection. One thing that Danielle, my colleague, keeps saying is we've got to stop saying we're not experts at stuff. We are. So we do. Bottom line is, yeah, we are proactive with it.
Yeah. And you actually said something that I should have highlighted before. The data you guys collect is real time. So it's not like a stale dated survey that somebody has once they compile the data a week later, here's your data. You guys are able to track almost minute by minute to some degree what's going on. And you guys, one of the things you guys have highlighted is that you were quite successful in tracking the polling data for the Donald Trump victory, where so many other surveys were calling quite different outcomes. So yeah, real-time data that changes on the fly.
Yeah, it's real-time data without the noise, right? So so you actually there are lots of other real-time data feeds out there. There's social media analytics, but what we're realizing is that it's not 2008 anymore. It's not even 2015 anymore. The amount of junk that is on social media, I actually find it a very interesting data feed. There are incredibly elegant, sophisticated social media mining platforms out there, which I always find myself very interested in combining the social media feeds with the RIWI data feed. But putting that aside, the point being is that there are other real data feeds out there, but a lot of it's just pure noise, and oftentimes you're getting the exact opposite. So, President Trump's election actually was a good example of that. We kept seeing these, so-called social media eruptions, and yet our signal was staying quite consistent in that regard with respect to his election. What we're seeing right now in the U.S. election right now, it's just interesting. I personally think it's still too early to tell, is simply that the don't knows are rising. There's just so much uncertainty with respect to the future of the United, and then even within the Republican Party, of course, you see fissures.
Are you able to tell us if you're starting to work with companies that are looking for polling data right now?
Yes. So there's an increasing, I guess, attention to this topic. I think the issue, though, I mean, we quite literally went into January 2020 thinking that the biggest macroeconomic event for the next 10 years would be whether or not Senator Sanders got elected or whether President Trump got reelected. Like, we literally, that was it. And so this was a change. We had designed our marketing plan around this, tracking US 2020, which is important. We're still doing it, no doubt. We've got, I don't even know how many observations we have with respect to this, but but then suddenly the biggest black swan was actually not COVID, but from an economic perspective, but it was the global business shutdown, right? And how people would react and how economies would implode or in some manner or form as a result. But things, I think, like businesses are now recognizing increasingly, oh my goodness, the next president of the free world is a really important macroeconomic event. People are just, still very, very focused on all things COVID.
Cool. Okay. Numbers. You guys, you just announced your last quarterly set of numbers. What is it? I don't have my numbers here.
1.322 million US.
Yeah, and you saw roughly 110% jump in profit. I think it was a 93% jump in revenues.
96.
Why? Sorry?
96.
96. Oops, I missed that 3. I'm going by bad memory. What happened? And what can we expect going forward?
Yeah, so that's the $100 million question. What can we expect going forward? We are in the prediction business, but there's only so much we can bring. So look, we've communicated that really the best way of evaluating our business is on an annual basis, because we have a much clearer window into the future as you bring on more salespeople, as more sales sort of are in the pipe and more data partnerships are brought on board. So we have great, and we've signaled, look, our goal in turn it's a significant but achievable goal in terms of our $30 million in recognized revenue for 2024. But that demands essentially a continual push and almost essentially stubborn persistence on sales, which is recurring revenue, constant going to work every day, picking up the phone, making the calls. So what can we expect going forward? Well, you can certainly expect more hard work. You can certainly expect, us to really focus on these big hits. When you go to the baseball, when you take big hits, you know, sometimes you strike out, but that's cool because inevitably you'll get some big hits. Base hits matter as well. So you'll be getting some of those. We care a lot about, you know, I gotta tell you, like, I didn't, I don't know, like, you know, other companies, they care a lot about media drops and all that stuff. That's not really us, but the media is interesting. We're starting to get a fair bit of that now, a lot of it, because it just, again, it helps with market awareness, and then that thing can make it easier to sell. Daniel, do you want to pipe in there with on the numbers and expectations, whatever we can share?
Yeah, I would echo Neil's comment that, you know, the best way to evaluate us is on an annual basis. Our numbers, you know, may have some variation between quarters. We try to be transparent in our revenue recognition model about our 4 milestones, technical milestones, and how we recognize revenue. You know, if you're building a model, it's not a classic SaaS-based, you know, company where, you know, every month, Paul, we have $100 booked to you, you know, and it's kind of linear. It's not like that. So we just want to make sure people understand how our revenue is recognized and understand there may be some variability between quarters. But as Neil mentioned, rest assured, this is what we're doing every day. We come into work, trying to grow this company, you know, in a smart fashion. I always say I care about 3 things: the top line, the bottom line, and cash in the bank. And if all those 3 things are trending in the right direction, then you know, we're doing the right things. And between the quarters, if there's some variation, well, that's what happens sometimes in our business, and we're trying to smooth those out. But rest assured, that's what we're focused on every day.
You know, thank you. You know, this audience may appreciate this, and Daniel, you reminded me of this. So many of you may have seen Ian Castle's video on the art of survival. I was just sort of doing YouTube. Business is the art of survival, and it just popped up. And I sent him a note because I was so blown away by it. It was beautiful. It was like this it was like a reminder about what business is, right? And so and it's a great history lesson. And so what has changed with COVID is our perseverance. Like, it's never been Daniel, I don't know if you know this. My grandfather was in the Polish in 1939 against the Nazis, Polish cavalry. And so, like, I remember my grandfather, you know, and his words to me, right? Just, you never stop, right? So that has changed. I think COVID, and not just for me, like, I know so many people that it's just given this, like, turbo boost of, like, what matters and just working hard. And it's almost like this sort of, within this crisis, you can feel a little bit of, like, salve in actually working really, really hard.
So really, the question I was really trying to get at was the breakup of how you guys got here. Is it a combination of, or what is it? Like, are we seeing more customers? Are we seeing more from those customers? Or, you know, the ability to grow your revenues by 100%, whether it's quarter over quarter and, you know, you look at it annually, you guys are obviously doing something right that's increasing that revenue. But how are you getting that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, okay. Maybe
so it's more of the net new, so more on the net new customers.
Okay.
You know, so there's certainly increasing business from existing customers, no doubt, but it's all about net new, right? So I believe I give credit to Jeff Bezos, who put the sort of the chair, right? And you said, oh, what would the customer think? I'm sort of obsessed with the empty chair, like the what would the future customer think? How do we get that future customer? So it's always about that. How do we, or you can call them new logos. So that's really the growth opportunity, Paul, is the net new. I saw the question pop up about, and this goes into your question about what is our definition of recurring revenues. We're very sensitive about articulating this clearly. Is that in our business, our repeat and recurring revenues comes in many shapes and forms, right? These contracts in some situations that are repeat can be kind of fungible. They change in little ways. Some are actually quite traditional in their recurring nature, but they all follow, there is professional judgment involved, right? So whether it's a UN World Food Program, which is under a long-term agreement where they can just easily build, whether it's a B of A Securities, whether it's a central bank, it's all, these are all recurring revenues that satisfy the definition of, there is a reasonable expectation that this business will continue or expand over time. Daniel, can you just clarify how we want to define recurring revenues to the marketplace right now and how that might evolve?
Yeah, and we're trying to be very clear in our MD&A, and we write exactly sort of what it is and how we define it. So let me just, I'm going to just read that exact line, because anyone can define recurring revenue on how they want to, define it. And because we're not a classic SaaS company where, if we signed up, Paul, for 2 years on a cell phone and, have $100 per month, that's more of a classic definition, and that's not sort of exactly what we do. But what we're saying is our definition of recurring revenue includes ongoing subscription-based services and long-term contracts of 6 months or longer that have a reasonably strong chance of being renewed or expanded. So we want to be transparent and saying, hey, this is how we characterize it. But some people may consider it in however they want to consider it. So we want to be forthright and say this is our definition and how we define it. So it's right there plainly that people can see right in our MD&A.
Okay, cool. Okay, why don't we do this? We'll jump to some of the listeners' questions, and then as I might have one or two more questions for you before we go here. Are there other similar companies that compete with the same clients? I think we've spoken that in the past, that you guys face all sorts of different kind of competition, but I've yet to really find a company that really fits in the mold that you guys fit. So it's hard to say there's real true competitors, but give us a sense of the landscape.
Yeah, no, we definitely have competitors that we know very well and we respect very much. They're not doing what we do and how we do it, but most of them are not household names at all. So the couple that are, for example, Gallup, I know John Gallup very well. It's a great company. Gallup is not a polling company anymore. I mean, in the political polling, it doesn't do that. It does. So we would compete with them for understanding sentiment in fragile and conflict states in the Middle East, for example. So that would be, and then there's a division of Ipsos that specializes in that kind of work. Out of California, there's a good company called, I haven't followed it in a while, but called Data Miner, which more on the social media sentiment analysis side. There was another company I haven't followed in a while called Geopol, which is doing a lot of interesting work using airtime cell phone credit data out of Africa, getting that. So they would be considered a competitor. So but most of them are certainly not household names at all. And so we do run up against the same competitors, but really, I mean, all of these same companies can be our partners as well, right? So there is a bit of that IBM integrator stuff going on as we evolve.
Okay, excellent. Okay, here's a question. How do you qualify the backlog?
It's a great question. It's a kind of an account. I'm going to turn it over to Daniel. Thank you.
Yeah, there's pros and cons for releasing all sorts of metrics. We track these things internally, but at this time, we've made the decision not to publicly announce anything related to backlog. So I'll leave it at that.
Maybe you guys have announced contracts. Maybe, and I don't have the math in front of me, but is there a contracted, let's call it a contracted backlog, or that have been announced? What give us a sense of some of the recent announcements and contract sizes, and when you think those will get exercised, over what period of time?
So I would say, some metrics that, can help understand sort of where we're at is when you're on the balance sheet, you can check our, unbilled revenue and the deferred revenue. So that gives you a little bit of window into what sort of work we've done. If we've received some money up front, that goes into deferred revenue. And the opposite of that is if we've done work upfront but haven't billed yet, that's unbilled revenue. So that gives a little bit of window into where we're at. But again, some of the contracts that we have are more like master services agreements or commitments to spend, and may not necessarily mean that those particular projects are in the field right now. So for example, if there's $1 million contract and they say, well, we're going to spend this amount of money over, say, the next year, 12 months, that may not necessarily mean we are in the field with all those projects. Maybe they want to split it out into 3 or 4 different projects, and we may be running 1 or 2 of them at that time. So it can vary depending on the client and how it's set up. So there's all sorts of ways.
Okay, perfect. Interesting question here. What does the product roadmap look like? What sort of changes in the product or improvements are you guys working on?
Thank you. So we're always always thinking about this stuff, and there's obviously there's feature issues, right? So sometimes even things like visualization, different forms of visualization for our clients matter a lot. But in terms of sort of product innovation maps, so we talked a little bit about integrating different data feeds. That's always interesting, and so we're doing that all the time. But we're always listening to our customers. So there's a ton of methodologists out there who love mapping social media data to RIWI data, okay? But when we can do that, but we only want to do that sort of when there's increasing demand signals. Other product innovations relate to IP that is continually being developed. Essentially, in a nutshell, I mean, I'm always really obsessed with understanding how the architecture of the internet, the domain name system, and various sort of elements around that can be used to better understand and predict customer demand, vertical demand in any geography of the world, and or things like housing prices or any number or equities related trends. So the map of innovation all relates to trying new product solutions to solve that problem, and sort of excited that we're on that path, but nothing immediate to announce today.
Okay. Here's a question in regards to contract and contract size. I guess I'll ask it in this format. Your average contract size is increasing. Are there, how dramatically can they increase in terms of average size? And are you working on anything that's of real substance, like some, multi-million-dollar contracts that we could see in the near future?
Well, so we're always, obviously we're quoting out, we always work to quote out both small and very significant size contracts in that bucket size. At the same time, even when they're small contracts quoted out, they're always quoted out with a view only to wanting to win that business if we see a view into significant work later. So obviously, there's nothing I can reveal in terms of imminence. But I'm sorry, I just missed the focus of the question. Daniel, did you want to jump in?
I'm trying to get a sense of how big could some contracts be?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, so maybe a way of answering that question is to go back to that competitor question that you asked. So, if you look at the type of deal size that a Gallup gets when they're doing fragile and conflict state data collection in different parts of the world, they're very large. Multi-million dollar, north of $10 million contracts. These are really large ticket items, and to win this business, sometimes they're competitive RFPs, but oftentimes the competitive tender is only offered to people who are in the pipe and have, like us, won successive positive performance reviews from the U.S. government or other. And certainly we work with partners that only want to go after that kind of business, those large ticket size. So yeah, our eyes are very large in terms of dollar size, quantum. Daniel, again, anything further on that?
Yeah, I would say, we do quote out project size of all sorts, small and large. And I would say, the Think Data that we just announced, end of March, that came fairly quickly. The sales cycle is very short because, as a large global healthcare company, every day that they didn't get real-time COVID-19 related data, it was affecting their business. So we filled that exact need that they had. And so they said, great, let's get in the field. And we basically worked overnight for a few weeks to get this all up and running. And of course, we'd love to do this again and again for all sorts of different types of clients. So, we can do this. Of course, we want to have larger contract sizes, but that's not to say that we're not going to do, smaller projects, because those can blossom into large contracts as well. And what I would say is that our technical capacity on the back engine, we're using less than 1% of our technical capabilities. So for us, a $50,000 contract or a $1 million contract or a $10 million contract is not that different from our back engine sort of way. So we're able to execute it very well. The only difference from us is, people, labor costs. If we want to have a dedicated project manager, someone, around 24/7 to be able to service that kind of client, and from a technical capability, someone to, monitor the dashboard or answer their technical questions, we want to ensure we have enough people involved with that. But from an actual technology back engine sort of way, it's not that different. So we're able to handle that.
Gotcha. Well, you know what? We'll take two more questions, and then and I think probably our time's going to run up here. How many customers currently make up your current sort of revenue base right now? Ballpark.
Daniel, I'll give that to you.
Yeah. So we don't track by number of customers because, for example, the World Bank can have many departments within the World Bank, and so we sort of track by the number of projects. And I would say in 2019 we were upwards of kind of 100 projects that made up last year. So as we go forward, we'll continue to track that internally. Not necessarily going to release those numbers publicly all the time, but suffice to say, we're trying to increase the dollar amount of each project we have in field, because we think that our value proposition really increases when the number of countries, say, are increased, and also the continuous nature of our data collection versus, say, a one country for 1 month, which of course we can do. We can knock it out of the park versus our competitors, but the real value proposition of differentiating RIWI from the rest of the pack is multi-country and also continuous stream over time, which in effect will also increase the size of the contract and sort of also be able to increase the number of sort of internal departments maybe within a larger organizations that want to use us as well.
Gotcha. I'll take one more question here, and I'll expand it a little bit, but there's a question here that says, could you have more than one hedge fund as a client? Let's broaden that question a little bit. You're going to deal with a lot of sort of companies or potential clients that are competing against each other in different matters. Is there ever a structure within your contract that prevents you from getting a second hedge fund as a client, or a different bank or something like that?
So great questions. The short answer is no. There's generally generally not. There can, theoretically, there could be. What's quite interesting about the hedge fund sector is oftentimes the buyers actually prefer that there be multiple, not always, but sometimes they prefer. They're subject to their own sort of regulatory sensitivities. So of course it's not like we're providing any sort of inside information of any sort, but nonetheless, that's sometimes just the way they like to buy, right? That they're just buying a seat. They may have their own bespoke questions that they care about, so they'll add them on to something that always runs. So that is actually how we like to do it. With respect to banks, theoretically, we haven't had that situation, but yeah, theoretically, a good problem to have, right? If you've got multiple institutions that are trying to compete for exclusivity with respect to a certain region, a certain topic. But no, we're very careful about ensuring that these offerings can be syndicated, expandable very easily.
So I'll leave it at that as far as questions, but I always like to give you guys an opportunity to sort of, if there's a message that I haven't sort of gotten out of you guys, or if there's something you want to have all the listeners leave with, one core message from the company, what would that be?
You know what? It's just a thank you, actually. Like the people, I don't know when I actually Trevor first spoke to Trevor, and Paul. It's kind of interesting. I mean, this connectivity, and we, as you know, I mean, I didn't really pay attention much to the capital markets until a little while ago. I've sort of educated and actually come to love sort of capital market stuff, and originally had a little bit of maybe a little bit intimidated by the Paul Andreolas of the world, whatever. But
my wife.
now I see you as the gentle bear you are. But really, honestly, it's just like a sense of gratitude. Like people, it's really nice to actually see people that have kind of discovered you and understand what it is. What it is we do and kind of why we do it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, listen, guys, I certainly want to thank you for, first off, thank you for your hard work. Thank you as a shareholder, and I know there's a number of shareholders here. Thank you for what you guys have done on behalf of us shareholders. Certainly thank you for the time and answering all the questions here. I just want to wish you guys continued success. I think you guys fall into the category that Ian is coined intelligent fanatics. I'm not shy to tell a lot of others how you guys operate, and if anything, you guys are sort of the model for how most microcap CEOs and management teams should be operating. So hats off to you for that. What should I mention here? So RIWI, RIW on the CSE. Let's see, I've got your symbol here on the US side, your RIW.CRF. Trevor, is there anything that we should be adding here that I haven't added in your mind?
Nope. Maybe best way to contact you guys, and the website is www.riwi.com. So RIW.com.
RIWI, sorry, .com. Right.
Other than that, I appreciate your time again, both of you guys, and keep up the good work.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, and thank you to everyone on the call today.
Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye for now, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.